whether some people come from the other sessions, so just bear with us for 5 minutes. Good evening, everyone. Sorry for the late start. The session next door is still going. We've been waiting for a few people to turn up. I think we'd better get started, though. It's about 10 past. Welcome to the Data Gathering and Analysis BOF. This is the third time we've held this BOF. It started as a result of our biannual member and stakeholder survey, where a question was asked whether community members would be interested in contributing data, either infrastructure, internet infrastructure, or technical or business data, to get a better understanding of the internet ecosystem in the region. And it got a very, very good result. There was 43% said absolutely yes. Another 37% said they were interested but would like more information. So that's 80% of the respondents were interested in exploring this. And so we've spent, this is the third meeting that we've spent just exploring ideas and talking about things. Today we have two topics. One is a new project that APNIC is proposing our members and community to get involved in. And then we'll get an update from a project that's been running a bit longer in Europe. So we have three speakers in two topic areas. We've got the first area is a BGP data collection project, and Sophia, the internet data scientist at APNIC, will present on that, and our partner Alessandro from the Isolario project will give you an in-depth look at the project that they've been working on. And then later, if Bijal manages to get here on time, we'll have a look at work EuroIX is doing on their benchmarking club, and a little bit of information about a new project that's in the works for an IXP database that's more of a global project. So I'd like to start by inviting Sophia up to the podium and tell us about your ideas. Thanks very much.
Hello everyone, thank you for being here. I know it's late and we're tired. I promise you will enjoy my presentation. Do I have... Yeah, it makes sense. There's like an arrow pointing that way. I think that means next slide. So my big project for this year is about collecting BGP data, and what I want to do with this is to create better local maps. And I have a beautiful analogy here so that we understand what's the importance of this project. I guess by now we are all familiar with the traffic in Kathmandu and how long it takes to go from one place to another sometimes. In Brisbane, I commute to work by bike. I bike every day by the river to the office. It's beautiful. But if I lived further from the office and I wanted to check traffic before leaving my place, I could use Google Maps. The traffic layer of Google Maps shows me areas of congestion, and I know exactly how long it will take me because I know that there are some streets that are more congested. Unfortunately, for Kathmandu, the traffic layer is not available. And I don't know what I was trying to do because I didn't know this in advance, but I was trying to use this as some example, and I couldn't get any traffic information. And I was like, okay, let's check why. So I went to the description of the API of Google Maps, and for Nepal, it says that the feature is not available in the area or with low data quality or availability. So it is because there's not enough local information for that traffic layer to be able to display information about congestion. And so, do we know how good our vision is? Maybe you can see perfectly. That's the Everest, right? Isn't it? But as it gets further and further, it may get a bit hard to say what that is. Maybe because you already know what it is, you say, yeah, that's the Everest. But if I had shown you this in the first place, you wouldn't know, right? So maybe we need glasses sometimes to see things that are very far away. For example, in my case, I need glasses. Or sometimes if we have our eyes closed, we just cannot see. So why do I tell you this? Because we need to have better local information in order to have better local maps. So we have the goal with this BGP data collection project I'm working on to design and deploy a routing measurement platform in our region. And in order to do that, we need better local maps, and for that, we need local information. So what we want to offer you is some tools that you can use to know what your neighbors know about your network, what your neighborhood look like, so your BGP neighborhood. If you could do better by connecting to new peers, to new upstreams, if you could detect and troubleshoot routing issues better and faster, of course you can. So the benefits of this for network operators would be have information about the BGP session status, the routing table size, and different other like reachability of prefixes, set up custom alerts to detect issues. And globally, while we get more local information, we will get a clear view of the AP region, of the internet topology in the AP region, and we will improve the global view of the internet as a whole. So there may be some security or privacy concerns. Sometimes when I talk about this, some people say like, so for some ISPs, for example, this is my business, right? I mean, I don't want to share who I'm peering with, who my upstream providers are, but it's not a secret. It's not that you're telling us anything that is not already out there, right? When you tell, using BGP, you tell your neighbors how to get to your network, your neighbors provide that, what's the word? Propagate. Sorry, I was like blank. Propagate that information. So it's not secret. If you share that information with us, you're just making our life easier, but it's not information that we could not get by other means. The same as it's not secret that the streets in Kathmandu are very busy, right? So again, you're just making your life easier. There may also be some concerns about costs. You may ask, okay, how long will it take me to do this you're asking me to do? Or does this mean that I will have incremented transit costs? No, it won't, because it's just a BGP session. Just BGP messages will go through this BGP session you could establish with us, but there won't be any traffic there. And in terms of effort and time that it may get for you to establish this session with us, it may take just a few minutes. And I have a beautiful example. On Sunday, after we finished with the hackathon, I had the network manager of WebSurfer sitting next to Alessandro from the Isolario project, who will be presenting after me. We're working in collaboration for this project because they already have a system, they already have a web portal with tools, and so they spent like half an hour maybe, and there was a lot of extra time just checking things, creating some credentials, but establishing the BGP session just took a few minutes. So it's not a great effort from you if you want to participate in this to establish this BGP session with the Isolario project and start sharing your information. I know some of you may say, okay, another BGP feed, maybe some of you are already sharing information with other BGP data collection projects. The thing with this is that there are lots of independent efforts out there, right? We know that Routeviews has a lot of collectors in North America. The RIPE NCC has the REES project with lots of collectors in Europe. Packet Clearinghouse and others. There are lots of BGP data collection projects. And the thing is that as there are all independent efforts, there's no like a single global view of the internet. So in parallel with this BGP data collection project where we're trying to deploy new collectors and get new feeds from the Asia-Pacific region, we are also working in collaboration with several entities to define a data format that we can use to merge all the BGP data collected by different projects. And the idea is that we're just starting with this, but the idea is that at some point we could have a standard data format that the different data collection projects can use, and then you can merge all of that. And all the people like me, like data scientists or people that just like playing with data, can use all that merged and have a better global view of the internet. So wrapping up, we've been trying to understand the Asia-Pacific region, but observing from very far away. We are observing right now the Asia-Pacific region from Europe or from route views, because most of the collectors are there. So what we want to do is we want to create better local maps. We want to have a better view of the Asia-Pacific region and understand better the internet topology in our region. And for that, we need you, people from the Asia-Pacific region who speak BGP, to come and talk to us. Give me your business card if you're interested, and I will follow up with you so that you can become a participant of this, my great project. So let me know, give me your business card, and let's try to set up a BGP session. Yeah, and about different perspectives. This doesn't mean that it's wrong, but sometimes we're just looking from the wrong side. Any questions?
Does your project have a URL to find out more information about where you are as far as the rock collectors you have in Europe versus what you're looking to get locally?
Not yet.
Okay.
I started writing a document. I just started working on this
Okay.
like a few weeks ago. I started writing a document describing all the goals and the people involved and everything, but there's no public webpage yet.
Okay.
But I promise, when I have something I can publish, I will share it in the APNIC blog. So if you keep an eye on the APNIC blog, you will find something there.
Alexander Azimov, Qt Labs. I represent another collector that was not listed on
Sorry
the slide.
about that.
It's okay. I have just a small suggestion that you should start with tools instead of asking feeds. When you will be able just to give people understandable description what they will get from you. It will be easier to make them involved.
Thank you for that. Yeah, so what I was going to say after asking Alessandro to come to stage is that, well, I already mentioned that we're working in collaboration with them. They already have a web portal with a lot of tools, and his presentation is mostly about that, all the tools that are already there. And my call for action, apart from telling me if you're interested in participating, is that we want some feedback. We want some feedback from the technical community, because sometimes it's easy to think of a lot of tools, measurements, or whatever that for me could be useful, but from the perspective of the technical community, of the network operators, I really want to know what they would like find interesting and useful. So yeah, I agree with you that it's a good start point, the tools and what we can offer. Yes.
How would you use the data you collected? This is the first question. And the second, what's the name of your project? Thank you.
I need to think on a better name because by now it's like BGP Data Collection Project, APNIC's BGP Data Collection Project, but I need to think of a better name. And for your first question, there are lots of things that can be done when you have like routing information from different perspectives. I've been doing some things that I can give as an example, but again, I'm really interested in knowing from the technical community, from the network operators, what you would find useful from us. So, for example, you can try to understand the aggregation and how the aggregation is being used. You can try to see, I don't know, some average number of upstream providers in the different countries, if there's any like pattern, if there's any differences between countries in the region, if there is room for improvement at some countries, so we can go and do activities with them to help them have a better interconnection, for example, in the country, opportunities for new members for internet exchange points to keep local traffic in the country.
I would like to know, would you make these data public when you collected them?
Yeah, so not specifically per network, so we won't make public specific information for an AS, for example, but yeah, what we can make public and I think would be interesting, but again, we are working with the community to understand the needs and try to satisfy those needs, but the idea is to have a kind of a stats portal where we can share statistics, general statistics about the region.
I have a question for clarification, Sophia. So at this point, you're asking people to join the Isolario project rather than your own collector?
Yeah.
And so they have the tools that people are asking about?
So in this first stage of the project, if you can come and tell me that you're interested in participating, you will set up a BGP session with the Isolario project, like WebSurfer, this Nepalese provider did on Sunday. But my first goal for these next few weeks is to have a collector deployed at APNIC so that you can set up the BGP session with us. But the information will go to the Isolario project anyway, and the tools will be available through the Isolario project. The tools they already have, because they already have a quite complete web portal, so we want to start working from that.
Hello. Yeah, I'm Rish from Afrinic. Sophia, I think this is a very interesting project to have a local view of BGP information. And I would like to have this also deployed in the African region, and I would be very glad to work with you on that.
Great.
Thank you.
Great. Yeah, mainly it's not just the AP region that is missing collectors, the African region, and before joining APNIC, I was doing a master's in Spain, and my master's thesis was focused on the Latin American region, where they have the same thing. There are just a few collectors, so when you try to understand the internet topology on the AES level, you're missing a lot of information. And part of my thesis was showing that when you add local routing information, you discover a lot of new relationships between AESs, and you can understand much better the topology of the region. So it's the three regions in the southern hemisphere that are missing collectors.
Hi, George here. So, because this is the data gathering BOF, I wanted to put some ideas out there that are kind of about community and data and gathering. We talk a lot. Sophia and I sit next to each other and we talk a lot about this project. So I'm not a Dorothy Dixer. I'm just exposing some of the things that we've talked about here. We have quite concrete ideas of things we could do with this data, and they're about improving people's knowledge of their own situation and then building something bigger that you can use to inform about the community that you're in. And that's purposeful work, because we don't just want to get data for the sake of hoarding data. That's not what a data gathering exercise is about. It's not hoarding, it's sharing. So we want to build things that we can share with people from this data. But there's a lovely moment in the data. If we can do this right, and we can build a repository of data that we can share with other people in public, you get this amazing outcome where people can put projects into it. There was a hackathon in RIPE a couple of years back where Martin Levy went into the data stack behind the Atlas collection, and he built an amazing picture of things going on in the global internet without using Atlas once, because he just went back into the held data in their repository and found a wealth of information. So this kind of activity, building up an improved view of routing in our region, we have things we know we're going to do as APNIC with the membership. We're thinking about product opportunities and things we could put in the portal, things we could put in stats, but we're absolutely thinking of inviting people in. Look at the data, do student projects in the data. If you see a publication that says something about routing in Asia, You could put a paper up using this data to do an assessment to see whether it's the same or different. There are lots and lots of opportunities in this. And to me at least, that's what data gathering is about. It's kind of the n squared outcome of doing it and then thinking, what else could I do with this? I think it's great.
Thank you for that, George. And something I forgot to mention is that apart from having like a statistics portal where we could share
posture and their presence in this world. And the thing is, when you look at your network, you also see how you sit among other networks. So you need the global view, and the better the global view is the better your assessment. So I would encourage, every data collector has their own tools and own interfaces. That's fine, that's great. But if you can work and encourage collaboration between other data collectors on common data interfaces and exchanges, you enhance your own toolkit and you enhance their toolkit at the same time.
Yeah. Thank you. And I cannot speak on behalf of the RIPE NCC, but on informal conversations, what we agree that would be a nice goal, something nice to have, is that, for example, the existing tools in RIPE-Stat, they would also be using as an input routing data coming from other sources, not just from REES. So I think that in the long term, that would be like a big goal.
Hi, Sophia. Anurag from Hurricane Electric. Thanks for the presentation and extremely interesting project. You mentioned certain route collectors, Oregon Route Views and RIS. They seem to be doing similar thing where there is a full table dump and an aggregate view of things. While the third one, which was PCH, that's slightly different and quite more useful in certain aspect where the view is local of various exchanges. So if you are planning this at this point of time, it may make sense to maybe have something like a flag where you, when you are dumping the data, you have a flag of from which exchange or whether the view is local to that exchange or not. So it can help to build out tools where you can analyze whether a prefix is visible in certain exchanges or not. Because many of the smaller exchanges, they have broken looking glasses, or even the looking glasses maybe do not work with, say, IPv6 or something else. But if you can have a system where you just create BGP sessions with route servers over there and have a flag inside where I can go and look into the raw data and see, okay, this prefix visible in, these 5 exchanges only, to help me plan out the network.
Yeah, so I mentioned that apart from the BGP data collection project that will be focused on having more feeders from the Asia-Pacific region, we are also working in collaboration with RIPE and people from Afrinic, LACNIC, and the idea is to define this data format, to merge data coming from different projects. And that data format, although we haven't got a consensus on it yet, and we're just starting to define it, as I see it, would be a kind of extension to MRT, where we can add like metadata to that, and so to identify which data collection project it's coming from, which collector, and other information. So that's a perfect valid suggestion, and I think it's something that we could add there too.
Sure. One part about the source from the collector, and the other part about if maybe somehow, again, I understand it would be very hard, maybe somehow mapped to which exchange you are learning it from. Although there is no standard, unique code for exchanges, if I may say so, to mark them, but maybe something of that sort. So you actually know that the data has been learned out of those specific internet exchange points, and that's local to them.
Great. Thank you for the suggestion.
That will be a metadata.
Say again?
Yeah, that's additional to your metadata.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If we are planning to extend MRT or create a new data format or whatever, but we will have metadata added to the routing data, it wouldn't be hard to just add a new field to identify what you say. Silvia.
Silvia Cadena, Epinic Foundation. Just wanted to say that a lot of the ideas on the queue for the MIC are excellent proposals for the ESIF grants on research network operations. So please remember that that funding is available. So if you want to do something like that and connect with Isolario or other projects, that funding is available. So check the website and apply.
I don't know if there's an English word for that, but we have a Spanish word for that, like short publicity, or when you just add something there, it's a chivo in Spanish. It's using your opportunities, it's perfectly valid. I'm just saying. Any other questions, suggestions, comments? Okay, so Alessandro will be now presenting about the web portal they are already offering with the Isolario project and the tools that you can find there. Thank you.
So good evening everybody, I'm Alessandro, and it's a real pleasure for me to be here in Kathmandu to tell you something about the Isolario project and the progresses we are making during these last weeks. Okay. So I'm a researcher at the Institute of Informatics and Telematics of the National Research Council of Italy. And I'm working on the Internet Autonomous System level ecosystem since 2009, trying to shed some light on some of its hidden characteristics of its structure, like, for example, inferring Internet Autonomous System economic relationships, or, for example, inferring geographic information. To do that, me and my research group are using heavily BGP data collected from Route Collector. For those of you who doesn't know what a collector is just a device which collects routing data from cooperating autonomous system. In other words, a routing suite, a BGP daemon, namely Quagga, Bird, or something like that, which establish a BGP session with volunteer autonomous systems and collect the data in MRT format. The route collector will never use this data to route any traffic. Plus, they will never announce anything back to the other routers to not interfere with their routing. These are the route collecting projects that are sharing MRT data publicly online that I'm aware of course. We have RouteUse from University of Oregon and the Routing Information Service from RIPE-NCC, which are sharing routing information since the late 90s. Then we have also Packet Clearing House that, as Anurag said before, is sharing all the routing information they are collecting from their peers since 2011, also in MRT format. However, during our studies, we found out that there is a slight problem about BGP data, and the problem is about the data completeness. The main problem is caused by the fact that only a few autonomous systems are connected to either RouteUse, RIS, or Packet Clearing House. And during my last analysis I did just before coming here, I found out that only 1,100 autonomous systems are sharing their before data, or 700 their V6 data with any of the route collectors I listed before. Even worse, only 228 of them are sharing a full V4 routing table, and only 184 of them are sharing a full V6 routing table. You can imagine that it's not possible to capture all the internet characteristics just with a few amount of autonomous systems like that, since the total amount of autonomous systems right now is more than 60,000. Plus, there is also another slight problem, which is the fact that most of the autonomous systems are sharing their data are connected in the higher part of the internet hierarchy. And the route collector are collecting those information from the top of the hierarchy. Due to the presence of economic relationships between autonomous systems and the related BGP export policies, it is not possible for the route collector to see any of the peering connectivity in the lower part of the hierarchy if it is connected to the top of the level. Indeed, an autonomous system, let's say, for example, A and E, A will never announce to E any route crossing the exchange point where A and B are collocated. Thus, the route collector will never be able to see that connection. On the other hand, if it was connected to the lower part of the hierarchy, the route collector would have at least a chance to reveal even both the connection between C and D and A and B, since D will treat the route collector as a customer and will announce every route they have to the collector. So D will announce at least one route crossing C and D, and A will announce to D at least one route crossing A and B. As a conclusion, most of the peering connectivity on medium exchange points is currently invisible to route collectors, which makes the importance of exchange points under-evaluated in most of the BGP-focused research works, for example. That's why we decided to do something, at least we tried to do something, with the Isolario project. We had an idea that we could do something in return for those people who decide to participate to a route collecting project. So we applied the DODES approach. DODES is the Latin for give to be given. And we asked for autonomous systems administrators to establish a BGP session with us, sharing the full route, in change of some services that we hope they may find useful. This is the rough schema of the Isolario system, and more importantly, of the real-time application of Isolario. You have on the right side the feeders, sharing the routes with a collector. The collector we have are an enhanced version of the route collectors that I showed you before, and we'll store the routing information and share that with the public here. But we'll also propagate some of the routes depending on the results of a filter applied on the route collectors towards the application which needed in the packets. The packet is then going to the core intelligence. In the core intelligence, everything will be merged all the information will be merged and some statistics will be performed, and everything will be announced to the web server. At the end, the user will receive the results of the services we offer to this via Isolario, thanks to one of the most common web browsers using the WebSockets. So, so far we mostly focused on real-time monitoring services. These are the services we already built up. I hope soon there will be available also some historic services. We are working on that. Now I'm going to show you some video about our services, but in the meanwhile, if you are curious enough, you can log in Isolario and try it with the guest credentials. So, the first service I'm talking about is the BGP Flow Viewer. It's very trivial, but it lets you understand the potentiality of the WebSockets and how we treat the real-time feature of the sessions. So, I'm going to pick a feeder, for example. I'm an administrator, I see everything. So as soon as I click on the feeder, I'm going to see all the packets which are currently flowing to the system and showing them as soon as possible to the user. We also geolocate the routing information thanks to MaxMind right now. And we put everything in the shape of a map to let the user understand what is going on his feed and which is the geographic region with the most routing events going on during the analysis. We also made some statistics to ease the understandability of this service, and that's it for this service. The second one is subnet reachability, which is a service which in my opinion is one of the most important for Isolario, since it fully exploits all the feeders we have. As soon as you click on subnet reachability, you're going to be able to select one subnet of your choice. Let's say, for example, the subnet of your autonomous system. Once you insert the subnet, you're going to receive from the system all the routing information from every feeder of Isolario, and each feeder is a different color in this case. The more the feeder, the less this table view is understandable. But each row also will let you know some routing information about how the route was reached. Plus, we also have some nice information from PNDB. And we have some statistics, some other visualization made thanks to the collaboration with Massimo Candela of RIPE NCC, which allowed us to introduce BGPlay, the real-time version of BGPlay actually, inside the system. I will not say much more about that. You can find everything on Massimo website. Finally, we have also set up an analysis system, which we hope it might be useful to users. It's a regular alerting system where you can set up your own triggers. We try to make as many triggers as possible, and I would love to have some feedback from you if you need any more special alerting trigger. Here I'm focusing on making an example and showing all the routes that are coming from my feeder and crossing an autonomous system path, starting with 2598, which is my autonomous system, 137, which is GAR, the research network in Italy, which is my provider, and 174, Cogent, which is one of the provider of my provider. As soon as I set up everything, just with a few clicks, and I save it, I'm going to be redirected to a summary page where I can see all the triggers I set up so far. And I will receive all the information via mail if I selected it, or via the notification summary we have in this page. Here, thanks again to WebSockets, whenever any event is announcing, for example, a path with that particular pattern, everything is going to show up, like now. And so you're going to be able to understand what's going on. That can be useful, for example, if you don't want one particular subnet to cross a particular autonomous system, and you want to be alerted whenever it happens. Finally, we have the daily reports. No video about that, because it's just a couple of reports we do perform every night. In this case, we are not going to take only Isolario data, but we are going to use all the data available so far that we are aware of. So Isolario, RIS, route use, and packet clearing house. And we will do one feeder report per each feeder we have, based only on his feed. And one autonomous system report, which is about reachability from all the feeds we have from all the projects towards the autonomous system under analysis. So basically, you can use Isolario just checking if everything is going on your routing is correct, thanks to the real-time services. You can check if anything weird is going on, just being alerted by this alerting system we deployed. And you can check what happened the day before, if there was anything weird, thanks to the day reports, and hopefully soon, thanks to the historic services. These are some of the numbers, at least these were the numbers of Isolario on February 22nd. We had about 120 feeder participating. We had the 120th arrived here in Apricot, thanks to the Nepalese guys of Web Surfer. That number is twice the amount of feeders we had last year, so it's a huge improvement for us. Most of the connections are from RIPE region, mostly Italy and Germany, so for obvious reasons. And we have, most importantly, we have 65 and 64 respectively V4 and V6 full routing table from different autonomous systems. Even more importantly, as far as I understood from the data, we are actually contributing to the completeness of data, since 96 of the 119 autonomous systems participating in Isolario are not connected neither to RIS or route use. So that means that actually we are contributing with some information which could be important. Plus we have a big news, which is the fact that now, since a couple of weeks, Isolario has the add path feature on. We have 10 feeders already sharing the routing information with the add path BGP extension, which is RFC 7911. And thanks to those 10 autonomous systems, we are able to see twice the amount of full routing tables than before, as you can see here. Again, the number is still heavily centered in RIPE and ARIN more than before. And most of the new feeds were not connected to RIS and route views, even if half of those 137 was. So in the end, to the community, we share as much as we can. We share MRT data every 2 hours with a feed snapshot of our collectors. We share update collection every 5 minutes. We use the same format as RIS, route views, and packet cleaning house. Those are the RFC that you can use to understand the format. Our data is also used by Hurricane Electric, so if you want better results there, you may be interested also in joining Isolario or any other route collectors. We perform some periodic analysis we can find in our isolario.it website. And most importantly, we try to make as many software as open source as possible. Right now we have the interactive collecting engine, which is the daemon we are using to collect data, and the MRT data reader, which is both a reader and a library in C you can use if you want to get information about the packets we are storing in MRT data. We are going to work hopefully soon on Bogon real-time recognition, thanks to the Team Kimbrough BGP session where they announced all the Bogons going on. And we want to apply that to real-time to give an additional alert to the users. We also would like to create a real-time looking glass now that we have a BGP add path extension on, so we can have also not only the best route, but also all the routes of a feeder, of an autonomous system, so we can have a proper looking glass. And we would like to complete all our efforts introducing also BMP in Isolario. That's it. I hope some of you may find that useful and you will consider to participate to Isolario. If you want, just or contact me personally or drop a mail at info@isolario.it. We can set up the session in a matter of minutes. Thank you very much.
Andrei Robachevsky, Internet Society. So I understand this is a research project.
Yeah.
So what's the future from the sustainability point of view?
We try to, well, the future about the research project is always foggy. We try to collaborate as much as possible with registries and share our results so that everything we did will be consolidated in the future. We try as much as we can to stay alive and continue and keep on keep being inside of my institute. But I cannot say anything more about that.
The plans to offer, for instance, monitoring service as a commercial service, or is it
Sorry?
you want to the monitoring service that, well, guest and the new services you want to introduce, are you planning to offer them as a commercial offering, or
No.
you want to stay free of
It's
charge?
going to be still free.
So you will be looking for some other third-party funding?
Yeah, exactly. I think that being free of charge is going to be the most effective way because it's a matter of trust to have more data. And that's what we want to achieve, being free of charge and staying a research in a research institute.
Well, this is great, but sustainability is very important because motivation to participate in your project and install monitoring tools. Operators would like to have a sort of, some perspective that that service will continue in years to come.
Yeah. We are also making some efforts to making it continue during the years, even in the case we are not going to follow that. I mean, the system is going to be there and working. And I hope in my institute, in the worst case, I'm not going to be there anymore. Someone can take and continue my work easily. So we are trying to make it as easy as possible to be understood and maintained.
And another question, if I may. So you know that CAIDA has IS relationship database.
Yeah.
And I know, like Curator, they also infer some relationships from BGP data. Have you tried to compare whether your heuristics matches theirs, or?
I didn't personally. I'm aware of a work made by Matthew Lucky, if I'm not wrong, from CAIDA, which did it. In the results he showed, of course, everything is on the paper. We were like 90% correct. He was 96% correct with the CAIDA data. But that's one of the reasons I'm not showing anything about economic relationship in Isolario. I want just to show correct data, not inferences. Maybe in the future we can add that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Sanjay from APNIC. Just checking responding to Andre's question, to make it more sustainable, one of the strategies to make it open source, and I understand that your codes are open source?
Not the code, not right now. We are thinking about putting everything open source someday, soon, I hope. You know, there is always legal aspects about that. That's not easy. You always risk to be a fraud for your institute if you just go and open source everything. You have a reason for the institute to have something in return, to have something made open source. And that's what my efforts are. I'm making inside the institute to let them understand there is a value and the usefulness for other people, for example, for registries.
Yeah, because I think that will be important. I would worry if we, but as long as the data is available, I guess we can always build new codes around it, right?
Yeah, right now we try to make as open source software as possible. So every little piece which can be standalone is going to be on the website. It's heavy to do because we are just a team of 2 people, 4 right now with 2 people working with us. So we take our time, but we try to do our best.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
So I like the signal that you are finding new points of view, because there's that joke that people say, you know, physics advances because we stand on the shoulder of giants, but computer science advances because we stand on each other's toes. But you're not. You're actually complementary to the collections that other people are doing. And I think that's a nice signal, because it's the opportunity for people to say we're complementary, there's a collaboration opportunity. It's not a conflict, it's a different view. Exactly. Sophia and I, when we talked about things that we could do here, the fact that you had a body of collection that is outside route views, there's actually a moment there. We talked with some researchers and they said, we have a high confidence you're going to have a signal of convergence, but there's real work to be done, and even proving it's a converged view is value. Of course, if it turns out it's a different view and there are significant differences, that's huge. Exactly. But the work should be done to prove there are qualities here that refine what we know and what we have, and there's good work to do there. I think this is nice.
Yeah. Well, during my presentation I showed you that 96 autonomous systems are not connected to route user-is. But, you know, one thing is to not be connected. One thing is what you're going to see through the autonomous systems. So there should be more analysis to be done and to understand how much Isolario is actually contributing. And that's something I'm going to do in the very next future.
So I would like to wrap up this, my project and the collaboration with Isolario with my call for action. And so I want to repeat that if there's anyone in the room interested in participating in this project, please give me your business card so I can follow up with you. And feedback, again, I think that's a great part of this, that we need feedback from the technical community, from the network operators, about what you would find interesting and useful in the tools we can offer you. As Alessandro showed, there are already a lot of tools in that web portal, but there may be things that you may feel that would be useful to have, so I would really like to hear that from you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Sophia and Alessandro. Thank you very much. Okay, we have one more speaker. Sorry, we're running a little late because we started late, but Bijal Sangani is the Secretary General of EuroIX and has a presentation on data collecting and benchmarking. If you could welcome her to the stage, I think. Thank you.
Okay, hello. Thank you for the introduction. So I am now in between you and food or drinks. So I'll try and make this quick. So I did a similar presentation to this at the last year at Apricot, and it was basically as a membership organization describing the process that we have been through or are going through on how we collect data from our members and also use it for doing some benchmarking. So this is what the presentation is about. So a quick introduction to EuroIX. EuroIX is a membership-based organization. Our members are internet exchange points, and currently we have 84. So while the name says Euro, we actually have members from all over the world. We have 2 meetings a year. We maintain the IXP database. We do various different programs to support internet exchange points, and through this we provide different reports and also the benchmarking, which is what I'm going to talk about. So what is benchmarking? So at its simplest, it's improving ourselves by learning from others. So, when we're completing surveys or doing some sort of data gathering, why are we collecting that data? It's so that we can see and analyze and look at that data and see where are we in that spectrum of data? How are we doing? How are we performing? Are others doing better than us? And if they are, why are they doing better than us? What can you learn? And trying to improve yourself and become better. So the need for doing some sort of benchmarking was identified quite early on in EuroIX. Because IXPs thought they had this unique problem that was just themselves, but also that IXPs were quite inward-looking, and one thing that benchmarking allows you to do is actually look outside of your organization and see what others are doing, and see what others are doing so that you can compare yourself on the spectrum and see where you are. And again, it comes down to trying to improve yourself and the services that you provide as an organization. But one key thing for benchmarking is that you need to have an honest broker. So you need to have a trusted organization where you feel that you can give your data to that isn't going to use it in any other kind of malicious way, but use it in a way that it can be beneficial for the membership, to help the membership see to see something different. So, what did we do? We made it optional for the membership. We didn't feel it was something that we could do, which was mandatory. And it's operated by the EuroIX Secretariat under the supervision of a small steering committee. So what we did, we asked for some volunteers from the membership, and we have 4 volunteers. And I have to say they've actually been quite steady, so we've not had much change in that, but we've had volunteers. Now the volunteers don't actually see any of the raw data. They only see the aggregated data. So this is important because as a membership organization and as this trusted source, it's important that when you're giving your data to somebody, you know what's going to happen to that data. So, this is done by the EuroIX Secretariat. And of course, there are club rules. So, the data contributed by members remains their property and is stored in a confidential manner. So when we get this data, we don't share it with anyone. The data contributed will only be reported back to others, and some new rules that we've had to put in place is that only members that actually take part in the benchmarking will actually see the reports and the analysis that is done once a report is out. And we have very specific categories that we want to look at. And the categories actually came from either the steering committee or the membership themselves, who wanted to be able to compare themselves with other members. And again, the steering committee in this is very important because they help go through the questions that are asked, because nobody wants to sit there for 2 hours answering a survey. So you want to make sure that the questions are really relevant and are actually questions that are going to help the member improve themselves. And finally, there's no charge for this service. So as a membership organization, we provide this to our members for free. So this is a list of the categories that we look at for benchmarking. So as an internet exchange point, there's things like pricing, member customer satisfaction, how many meetings a year do they have, what are your traffic metrics, how many staff do you have, where are your staff allocated, are they technical, are they marketing, and also your customer growth base. So we also look at, how much has the IX's customer base grown within the year. How does it work? So we tend to open the survey around November time. We keep it open till February. There's a lot of pushing from the EURIX Secretariat, so it's not easy to get members to actually complete the survey, so we spend a lot of time contacting the members and saying, please do this, it's only going to take you half an hour. We started it in 2004, where we had 18 members participate. And we found that there were some cheeky members that would answer one question and then that was it. And we found that this really wasn't good enough, so we actually put new rules in and said, okay, you have to answer at least 50% of the survey to get the report. And this actually worked, because we've seen a real big growth in the number of members that take part. So, and the good thing is that, we've been running this for since 2004, so we've got a lot of historical data which we can now refer back to and do some comparisons and look at where we were 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And that also is also interesting data to look at. So we're currently on round 12, which was 2017. We had 34 participants, which is approximately 40% of the membership. When I was writing these slides, I was looking at my slides from last year, and last year, the year before, we had a little bit more, so I think I'm going to need to do a little bit more pushing this year. But the idea is that we get more and more IXs to take part, because the more members that take part, the more valuable the data actually is. So what's changed? So since I gave this presentation last year, the Internet Exchange Federation, which is the, if you like, the mother company of EURIX and the other internet exchange points, we've been working on a project to build a database, and this is the Internet Exchange Point database. The key thing with this database is that it is fully automated. So what this means is that we can actually, now when we're doing the benchmarking, there's a lot of questions that we don't have to ask in the benchmarking, because a lot of the questions and a lot of the data that we was collecting manually from the members is now already in the database. So what this means is that the membership doesn't have to spend as long as it did doing the surveys. And again, so the data, when we do the benchmarking, the data that is already available through the database will be imported and used in the reports that we provide for the benchmarking. At the moment, our biggest challenge is encouraging IXPs to actually automate the data. There's a lot of IXPs that are still quite nervous about using automation, because you don't know where your data is going. So there's a need to build in some authentication, and that's really not a problem. So that would be one of our next steps, is trying to building in authentication, and so that when the authentication for the API, so there is end-to-end authentication from the IXP sending us the data to us receiving it, and then we can use the data as we wish. And this is where we are, and that's it. So, yeah, are there any questions?
Thanks, Bijal. It's Paul from APNIC. I always find this really interesting to hear about what you're doing as a membership organisation to sort of add value to the membership, and also to provide a kind of community activity of bringing people together to share information. the information that's contributed is aggregated and the aggregate report is made available just to the contributors, right? Is any part of that report available publicly? Like, do the contributors kind of allow some of the data points to be made public?
So actually there are some data points that I actually use in my presentations which have been kind of okayed as generic information that can be used. But otherwise no, they do consider it as sensitive information.
Right, okay. I could see it would be a great service to the wider community to be able to bring at least some of that information out. Not all of it, obviously, some of it's confidential, but some of that information could be very good for the understanding of the IXP community as a sort of service from Euro IX to the rest of the world. But I can also understand that people would want to stick to the confidentiality.
Yeah, so actually, so with the development of the IXP database, because a number of this, a certain selection of the data that we already collect is now going to be made publicly available. So that data we will be able to publish in a report publicly.
Right.
But when I talk about staffing and pricing and things like this, I think is not going to be made public, but things like port pricing and other things that are more public things available on the members' website, for example, we'll happily aggregate all of that data and put it into a report. So yeah, there will be in the future there will be more publicly available reports on this.
Actually, I have a question, if that's okay. I didn't realise you had, because you called Euro IX, I assumed that all of your members were in Europe, and you said that not all of them are.
Yeah.
That raises two questions for me, because one of the, do you find that there are different answers when you get outside of Europe? We've got a very diverse number of economies from developed and developing economies in this region. I just wondered whether you found that the same, and whether that kind of created irregularities and disparities in the data.
So actually what we do is we actually separate the data. So there is like the global view, which includes all the IXs, and then there is the European view as well. Just for those reasons, because in different parts of the world, in Asia and in Africa, things like port prices and staffing, salaries, are very, very different to what they are in like mainland Europe. So I think it's very important to separate that to get a real view of what's going on.
Yeah, just one more. You have only a third of your members filling in the survey, and I wonder if that's because you have just one survey and maybe there'd be different sets of interests. So I was wondering if you'd thought about having kind of multiple clubs, like a club of members who wanted to share business information, a club of members who wanted to share technical information. And obviously one member could be in both, but
right.
You'd then segregate the data and the data sharing on that basis. And I sort of think of that in terms of trying to do anything like this in APNIC, where we've got a huge number of members and probably a really big diversity of interests. So some people might simply not be interested in some parts of the survey, and so asking them to fill the whole thing in could actually be a disincentive.
A bit of a cumbersome thing, yeah. Actually, that's not something that we've thought about, but it's a good idea, and I think that doing something. So the way that we have the way that the survey is actually set out is that it is set out in you have your pricing, you have your staffing, you have your technical questions, so that we leave it open for so that a member of a finance person can go in and fill out the finance details, a technical person can go in and fill out the technical details. So in that respect, it's kind of there. But yeah, I think that's a good idea. And I think, for an RIR, my membership is just Internet Exchange Points. So there's a very common theme there.
Exactly.
For for APNIC, I think that would be a much better idea because you've got such a diverse group of members, and obviously, your CDN members or your Access members may not be interested in a different data, and also the data set is going to be very different.
Thanks.
So, yeah.
Hi, Ashley Jones with Packet Clearinghouse. We obviously run our own IXP directory, which is similar, I think, to the IXP database you guys are working on. I understand you're gathering your statistics automated from IXP Manager, is that correct?
Yes.
And is there anything from best practices you have from gathering those stats all the way down to a fully baked utility for consuming them? From what little I've researched, IXP Manager can be configured to serve up their statistics at different endpoints with different signatures to query the data. So I just wonder if you could share some of that. Obviously, we're interested in automating some of our input as well, so in the BOF effort.
Yeah, so actually I'm not quite sure of the question there. Sorry.
So a simple question might be, is there a utility that is open source that you use to consume stats from IXP Manager? And then if not, how do you devolve back to what you use?
Okay, so IXP Manager actually has an inbuilt export to the IXP database.
Okay.
So any IXP using IXP Manager will automatically send their data to us.
And is that configured to be
Default on.
default on, so it's opt-out?
Yeah.
And is it extensible, so you can push to other providers?
No.
Okay,
Not at the moment.
okay, thank you.
Hey, Vijal.
Okay.
So a conversation I had a long time ago, I was at an NZNOG, and someone there got up and pointed out that the participants at the APE and Wix, the two main exchanges in New Zealand, less than half of them had actually filled in any kind of information in PeeringDB or any other IX registration. And he made the observation that if you don't put the information in, if you don't make this information available, there are any number of people like Google or CDN providers who on their rankings can't consider you a serious candidate to put things because there is no sense of convergence of people that would justify the business. And I don't think people have quite realised how much value you're putting back in the system if you participate in these things that you're doing. It's huge.
Yeah.
It absolutely goes to the bottom line of what people are trying to do. So I absolutely encourage you to make this work because it's building better outcomes for everyone. There's any number of consumers of this information.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah. Thanks.
Any more questions? Sure, it's quite late, so I guess we should thank Vijal very much for coming along and telling us about that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks very much. That sort of project is certainly something that APNIC would consider if anyone is interested in seeing something like that in our own region. Please let someone from APNIC, myself or some other person, know that you're interested in that sort of thing and ask them to pass it back to me. But I think for now it's 7:20. I think we should call it a day. Thanks very much.